Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to talk about improving your ability to carry your team as a solo queue player. A lot of people seem to think that in order to make it to global, you need to be playing with a stack, a several player queue together, and that's simply not true, unless you want to keep your sanity. But in general, you certainly can make it to Global Elite as a solo queue player. There's just a few things I would keep in mind to try and help you on your journey. First off, you want to make sure that you're not expecting too much in terms of team play. Simply put, your team is not going to really understand how you want to play the game. You're going to be on very different pages and oftentimes very different skill levels, so don't expect your team to do things for you unless they are clearly outlined. Don't expect more than will be delivered, and you can try to play around that. For this reason, typically you're going to want to be looking at having some entry frag routes that you can do on your own. Things that you can go solo to try to make a play, get things done, get some map control, and make sure that your team is set up in a positive situation. I have a video on solo entry routes on the majority of maps. One of the most obvious here is Banana on Inferno. What you want to do is you can toss a molly towards car, hide in this corner for a second, maybe even flash for yourself if they're trying to get aggressive. You can then try and spam corner behind this Molotov and pre-fire anybody holding it. After that molly goes down, you can right-click a flash, peek in front of it, and try to clear out the rest of top Banana. This is not a perfect way to clear it. Certainly you can be caught off guard by certain things. However, this is a set of utility and a route you can take to clear out an area without any team support, and that's what you're usually going to be finding when you're solo queuing. You're not going to have competent teammates that really can support you. It would be great if you had maybe a flash like that as you're taking car that can blind and land behind you, or even a flash from back here, a window flash, if they're getting aggressive on Banana against you. However, again, you can't really expect that all the time in solo queue. You want to have something you can do on your own that finds somewhat consistent success. These solo entry routes really do play into the idea that you want to have as much round impact as possible. Very often a player with lesser frags than the top fragger can have more impact on the outcome of a game, even in a positive manner, than that top fragger if they played a different style. That doesn't mean you need to be an entry fragger. However, you just want to make sure that you're not kind of defaulting into playing super passive. You're not just sitting back, constantly holding angles, waiting for your opponents to push out. Oftentimes what will happen if you do that is you'll get a good number of frags. However, your team on the other side of the map will decide the outcome of the round without you. You want to be trying to make sure that you have some input as to how a round plays out and who is the winner or loser. That's why these solo entry routes are very effective, but you can certainly do any number of different things. Just make sure that you're having some impact and actually changing the outcome of a given situation. While I do like to focus on having good round impact as a solo queue player, you also have to make sure that this is positive impact. Of course, some of the time when you're having positive impact, that will come with the negative. You take risks. Occasionally they will go poorly. However, you want to make sure that if a game is going very poorly in general, you don't just throw everything for your team. You don't just aggressively send the game, run it down, and play a 4v5 while you're speccing your teammates. If your team is doing a good job of carrying, if you have someone that's dropping a lot of kills, try to let yourself be carried. Try to support that player if he needs it, and try to just survive for a while in these rounds. Perhaps that can get you some of your confidence back. Perhaps that can make you a little bit less tilted, and it can give you some wins that you otherwise wouldn't. And while this isn't necessarily you carrying yourself to a win the way you would want, it is a positive aspect, and some players don't know how to be carried and cause themselves a lot of problems. A thing to note is that especially when you're in these situations where you're doing kind of poorly, it's nice if you can try to lightly coordinate your team. I don't want you to IGL, and I hate when people get into games and IGL in matchmaking because I feel like more often than not, they're actually a detriment to the team. Players in matchmaking have a tendency to not play very well when not doing their own thing. If they like to go long a lot, they want to go long. If you try to force them to do something else, oftentimes things will go very poorly. But that doesn't mean you can't again, lightly coordinate your team. If your team is set up and you've got a 4v4, you've got a 3v3, you can suggest things. You can ask your teammates to come back around, rotate over, and make their way over to long with you if you've worked your way out long. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think that full-on IGLing and telling everyone what to do all the time is not positive. You want to be trying to bring your team together in situations where it's relevant. At the end of the day, try to be reasonable. Don't give up hope in games when they're just a few rounds away. I've seen the most ridiculous comebacks that you can even imagine in solo queue games and ESEA, Face It, on all the platforms. 10-0 down, you can easily come back. That's just the way things work. Momentum is insane in games like this. Keep your head up, have some fun, and eventually you'll get there. Also, don't queue train. Total disaster. Just don't do it. But thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. Patreon, Patreon, Patreon. Sale of the century right now on patreon.com/VooCSGO. We have a 0% off sale. Tomorrow, we will have a negative 0% off sale. All items must go, but there's no limit to the number. So you really just, all tiers must be filled. There's no limit to the number that you filled. So Patreon, VooCSGO, limited time, forever. There's no limit. 0%. Go there to the Patreon, hit it up, support the content. Catch you next time.